I was embarrassed about the size of my member, but when I decided to go to the doctor to get it checked out. But it turns out that when the doctor saw what was in my pants, this happened, and it is something I will never forget. Stay to the end for this story. So make yourself comfortable, and we invite you to subscribe to the channel and activate the little bell so you don't miss any video. The office waiting room was silent, except for the faint hum of the air conditioner. Sitting there, I fiddled with my fingers, feeling increasingly insecure. I had tossed and turned for months before deciding to see a doctor. But the insecurity I had carried with me for years had finally pushed me to take the plunge. It wasn't easy to admit, but I had always felt self-conscious about something that, at first glance, no one else seemed to notice. Inside me, however, it was a constant weight. The doctor walked in with a relaxed energy that I was not expecting. His name was Julian, a man in his mid-30s with a warm voice and an easy smile that immediately put me at ease a bit. After a brief greeting, he led me into his office. As I walked behind him, I watched how he interacted with the nurses, always friendly, with an attitude that inspired confidence. Are you liking the video so far? If so, leave us a like and subscribe. Let's keep going. So what can I help you with today? He asked, sitting down across from me with his notepad at the ready. I took a deep breath and began to explain to him, with a mixture of embarrassment and nervousness, what had brought me there. Well, it's a little embarrassing, but I feel I need to do something about my size. My self-esteem has been really shot lately. Julian listened to me attentively, nodding from time to time, but not interrupting me. When I finished, he stared at me, but not in an uncomfortable or critical way. It was as if he was trying to understand the undertone of my words. I understand, he finally said, but before I make any decisions, I want to ask you a few questions and make an assessment. Is that okay with you? I nodded, although I still felt some degree of discomfort. He took me to a small exam room where he asked me to put on a gown and wait a few minutes. The clinical atmosphere made me a little tense, but I tried to remain calm. When he returned, his attitude was still professional, but I noticed a slight change in his expression as he began the exam. After a few moments of silence, he put aside his tools and looked at me. You know, this is interesting, he began. From what I can see, your concern is unfounded. In fact, your size is well above average. I was stunned. I had carried this insecurity for so long that hearing those words was not only disconcerting, but also liberating. What surprised me most, however, was the pause he gave afterward. Her gaze met mine, and in that instant there was something different. A brief but intense moment. He ended the consultation in a professional manner, but his tone was warmer. There's nothing for you to worry about, really. But if you need to talk about anything else, I'll be here. I thanked him and left the office with mixed emotions. On the one hand, I was relieved, but on the other, there was something about that interaction that left me wondering. Over the next few days, I couldn't get the way he had looked at me out of my mind. There was something else in his words, something that seemed to go beyond the purely medical. Before we continue, we invite you to give us a like and subscribe. Let's keep going. A week later, I received an unexpected message. It was Julian, the doctor. He had gotten my number from the records to make sure I was okay. I was surprised by his attentiveness, but also pleased. He asked if I would be willing to meet outside the office to talk more. I hesitated at first, but finally agreed. We met at a discreet coffee shop, where his professional attitude gave way to a more relaxed and personal tone. During the conversation, Julian confessed that our interaction in the office had impacted him in a way he hadn't expected. It's not often that someone is so honest about their insecurities, he said. It made me think a lot, not just about you, but about how we sometimes underestimate our own worth. I answered honestly, admitting that I had also felt something different during the consultation. That moment when our eyes met had not been accidental. The conversation flowed with a naturalness I had not expected. Before we knew it, hours had passed, and the connection between us was becoming more evident. The relationship that began that day was a total change in my life. Julian not only helped me overcome my insecurities, but also showed me a whole new way of looking at love and relationships. His unconditional support and patience allowed me to open up completely for the first time. It was not easy at first. I had to face prejudice, both my own and that of others. But with Julian by my side, I felt stronger. I found in him not only a partner, but also a friend and a guide. I learned that true connection does not depend on appearances or insecurities, but on the ability to accept and be accepted for who you really are. As our relationship grew, so did my confidence. What started as an uncomfortable medical consultation turned into the experience that changed my life. I will never forget how, in facing my fears, I found something much greater: love. Don't forget to subscribe and like us for more content like this. Let's continue. The days following our first date at the coffee shop were filled with intense emotions and unexpected discoveries. Julian and I began to communicate almost daily. At first, our conversations were light, full of anecdotes and casual topics. But little by little, we got into deeper territory. We talked about our experiences, fears, and dreams. I felt a connection I had never experienced with anyone else. One day, as we walked through the park after sharing a meal, Julian took my hand for the first time. It was a subtle gesture, but loaded with meaning. We stopped on a bench under the shade of a tree, and he looked me straight in the eye. "You know," he said to me in a soft voice, "I didn't think I'd find myself feeling anything so special, let alone in my line of work. But with you, it's different. I can't ignore it." Her words filled me with a warmth that ran through me from head to toe. At that moment, I knew that I was not only starting a relationship, but that I was beginning to heal. Julian wasn't just someone I liked. He was someone who saw me for who I really was, even in my moments of vulnerability. As our relationship progressed, there were challenges. The idea of dating someone who had previously been my doctor was something that raised doubts, both for me and for him. But beyond that, there were my own insecurities. Although Julian made me feel loved and wanted, there were days when my old insecurities about my body came back to haunt me. At those times, Julian always knew how to support me. He supported me very well in bed, all the time telling me how big I had it and enjoyed it, that made my self-esteem soar. "Everyone has something that makes them doubt themselves," she would tell me as she hugged me after one of my bouts of insecurity. "But those things don't define who you are. You are so much more than that." Eventually, our relationship became public among our close circle. My friends were surprised at first, especially at how it had all started. But when they saw how happy I was, they put aside their doubts. Julian's family also welcomed us with open arms, which meant a lot to both of us. One of the most memorable moments came when he took me on a surprise weekend trip. He had rented a small cabin in the mountains, a secluded and quiet place. During those 2 nights, we talked about everything: our passions, our fears, and what we wanted for the future. Julian, with his patience and warmth, helped me open up parts of myself that I had kept closed for years. "This trip isn't just to relax," he said, as we shared a glass of wine in front of the fireplace. "It's to remind us that despite how our story began, we're here because we both chose to be, and because what we feel is real." Those words were engraved in my heart. I had never imagined that someone could love me in such a complete and sincere way. Julian was not only my partner, but also my support in the process of learning to love myself. If you liked the video and this content brought you value, leave us a like and share it with your friends so they don't miss it.